Common parent mistakes when helping with literacy. This one is too hot. This one is too cold. This one is just right. This one is too hard. This one is too soft. This one is just right. Do you recognize these examples of the literary rule of three? Did an image of a young, curious girl wandering into an unlocked home pop into your brain? That's right. Those lines probably brought back memories of the story Goldilocks. The dialectical three, as author Christopher Booker calls it, used throughout his story. Booker explains that the dialectical three is the idea that the way forward lies in finding an exact middle path between opposites. Quality teaching looks similar. You must find the middle path. You do not want the material to be too hard, frustrating the learner, and you do not want it to be too easy, where little or no learning occurs. It has to be just right. The Orton-Gillingham approach, using the science of reading methods, aligns with Booker's dialectical three concept. Children need to be presented with just the right amount of new information to maximize learning. Over the years, I have noticed that finding this balance can be difficult for parents to navigate, and rightfully so. Once we know how to read and spell, being able to break the concepts down into small, manageable learning chunks isn't easy, especially when we don't have a solid grasp on phonics ourselves. Yep, I said it. If you don't have a strong phonics foundation yourself, because that method of literacy instruction wasn't used with you, then you might be doing some things wrong. Today, I'm going to cover my top 4 things I notice parents do when trying to help their student that are wrong. Stay tuned so you can learn easy ways to support your student in a just right way. The Simple Literacy Podcast is your one-stop shop for tools, strategies, resources, and lessons to support your student on their literacy journey. Every Tuesday, I will get down to the basics and give you literacy tips and tricks that make helping your student uncomplicated, easy to understand, and just downright simple. I'm Ashley Malakias, an elementary educator, passionate about finding a way to help fill the literacy gap in the education system. A mom of 2 busy elementary-aged kids, a committed Orton-Gillingham Associate Tutor, and creator of Simple Literacy. At Simple Literacy, I have one focus in mind: to cultivate a nurturing community empowered to advance literacy using the science of reading methods. If you are devoted to helping your student, join me at Simple Literacy, where literacy is simplified and student success and confidence are nurtured. You can follow me on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Pinterest to get weekly tips and tricks on literacy. Together, we can turn any dark clouds of frustration into a horizon of beautiful, sunny skies. Today, we are going to get right to it. My top 4 common parent mistakes when helping their student with literacy. Number 1, just sound it out. Raise your hand if you have said that once or twice before. Here is the challenge with this statement. It is easy to sound it out when you have the grapheme, the letter, and phoneme, the sound, correspondence knowledge necessary to just sound it out. However, when someone doesn't have the orthographic mapping for the sounds in the word and the ability to identify patterns in the word, it is like telling someone to just bake the cake without giving them a recipe and ingredients. Let me give you a few examples that I have witnessed happen in my own household. Yes, what that means is I've watched my husband do this. The word was neighbor. Just sound it out, he says. Well, unless my child knows EIGH makes the long A sound, there is no way they can sound that out correctly. So they attempt to sound it out. A, g, b, or, negabor. Well, now we are in a pickle. They are royally confused because they have never heard that word before, and it doesn't make sense in the context of the story. I realize you might not know that EIGH is a spelling for long A, and that is fine. But telling them to sound it out is not the best route. It usually leads to confusion and misinformation. Another more simple example that I have witnessed kids do a ton, which means this is how they have been taught, is to sound out every letter in a word, like man, can, ham, bam. For example, the word man. If you were to sound out every single letter in the word, it would sound like this. A, and then they are supposed to read it as man, but the sounds they just isolated don't say man. They would say f. This is because A and N are glued sounds and should be kept together when blending, and they make the an sound. So if you were to sound out man correctly, it would sound like this. An. Then you can easily and correctly hear the word those sounds make. Man. Here's the bottom line. If you don't know how to explain how to decode or read a word to your child, don't. Just tell them the word. However, if you are feeling extra thirsty for phonics knowledge, you can reference my Parents' Phonics Guide to see what sounds make up the word so you can accurately break it apart for them. Email me at simpleliteracy@gmail.com to get a copy of my Parents' Phonics Guide. Number 2, spelling. Do you hear this often in your home? Mom, Dad, how do I spell? And you can fill in the blank. The reason you hear this more times than you would like is because you probably spit out the answer faster than ChatGPT responds to messages. It is easy. We all do it. I do it. But try to stop yourself from this habit and put more of the responsibility on your child. Oftentimes, they are asking before they have even tried themselves because it is easy and faster. Give a man to fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. Think of your support as teaching your child to fish. The simultaneous oral spelling procedure, also known as SOS, helps equip students with the tools necessary to spell words. Listen to this clip of it in action. Nab.
N-A-B. N-A-B. Nab. N-A-B.
What's the word?
Nab.
Excellent. If you want a free SOS visual to use with your student, email me at simpleliteracy@gmail.com. Number 3, I wish I could see your reaction when I say this one. You are either going to nod your head in agreement or have a look of confusion on your face. The schwa. If you know that schwa is more than just an awkward word to say and hear, then I am pretty confident you will agree with me that learning this concept is essential for students to gain confidence when reading and spelling. And if you don't know this concept, I think you will soon agree that students who know and understand schwa have an easier time making sense of multisyllabic words that don't fit the normal phonics rules. The schwa is a soft, unstressed sound like that can replace any vowel in English words. It's the most common sound in the English language and is often heard in unstressed syllables. That's extremely important. It's the most common sound, and that is a reason in and of itself to make sure your child knows what it is. The vowels A, I, and O are usually the letters that represent the schwa in a word. For example, in the word along, the A spelling says along, and is the schwa. In the word definition, the second I says and is the schwa. And in the word bacon, the O says and is the schwa. Be aware, though, that the schwa does not always have to say It usually does, but it can make other vowel sounds in the unstressed syllable in a word. For example, the E in problematic says and the second E in celebrate says Now that you know about the funky word and concept of schwa, you will be prepared when your student comes to a vowel sound that is pronounced differently than what they see in the word, to confidently explain to them how the sound can be lazy, is sometimes what we like to call it, in the unstressed syllable of the word. But it is essentially a schwa sound. Number 4, this one is a combo. Neglecting fluency and comprehension. Oftentimes when reading, we become consumed by decoding, breaking apart the words, that we forget that reading is not merely the action of reading the words on the paper, but understanding what they mean. In order to understand a text, a reader must be able to read it fluently, and in return, comprehension will likely increase. Fluent reading is when a text is read smoothly, accurately, and effortlessly. To build fluency at home, encourage students to read short stories or chunks of text multiple times. My go-to number is 3, and my students know that they are expected to read their words and decodable text 3 times. The first read is to simply ensure they can read all of the words. This is where they might need to stop and decode and break apart those words. The second read is when they will focus on grouping words together. I like to think of it as scooping. They're going to scoop words together so that they become more fluent. The third read is when they focus their efforts on comprehension. This is where they stop and think. They have to stop and think about the text to ensure that they understand what the words mean. Since we are on the topic of comprehension, let's discuss it further. Comprehension can be demonstrated in many different ways: orally, in written form, and through pictures. The way it is done is not the critical piece. The critical piece is that it is done. When checking your child's comprehension, give them options on how they want to share their learning from the text. Also encourage explicit and implicit answers. Explicit answers may be answers about key details, characters, setting, problem, solution of fiction texts. And summarizing may an idea, questioning, synthesizing, and so on for nonfiction texts. Implicit answers cannot be found directly in the text. This is where students' background knowledge, opinions, experiences are tied into their understanding. These can be open-ended questions leading students to think more freely. I challenge you to spend 5 to 10 minutes after reading with your child to ensure comprehension has been achieved. If you need to shorten the actual duration of reading the text, that is fine, because comprehension is worth it. During the comprehension time, ask them explicit and implicit questions. If you want a handy-dandy cheat sheet of questions from these categories, send me an email at simpleliteracy@gmail.com, and I will be happy to share. Although decoding is critical and one of the beginning steps to reading, fluency and comprehension should not be neglected or forgotten. Fluent readers can understand written text quickly and accurately, extracting meaning without undue effort. Thank you for hanging out with me today. I have loved sharing with you what I have witnessed as common parent mistakes in regards to literacy. I am devoted to helping you help your student. If there is a topic you want me to cover, please send me an email at simpleliteracy@gmail.com, letting me know what you want to chat about. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Pinterest, and tune into my next podcast, all about heart words. Also can be heard. Tune into my next podcast, Heart Words. You might have also heard the terms sight words, learned words, read words. What are all of these different terms, and what do they mean, and how can I help my learners succeed at mastering them? Until then, remember, together we can turn any dark clouds of frustration into a horizon of beautiful sunny skies.